I'm Carolyn Freeman from Brownsville, Tennessee, and I was the florist and chairman of my district, which consisted from above Memphis to the river and up to Paris Landing, chairman with FTD, Florist Trans-World Delivery Service, at the time of Elvis's funeral. I had no idea the gentleman had died, and I was in Memphis that Wednesday gathering plants up for my shop, Brownsville Flower Shop, and none of the greenhouse people had radios on. Nobody ever knew that Elvis had died, I guess. Nobody told me until I got back to Brownsville that night. And my mother called and said, they're calling from Southfield, Michigan, FDD headquarters, and you've got to get to Memphis at 6 o'clock in the morning because Elvis died. So I couldn't believe it, but I dutifully did my duty and got up early that morning, drove down and met Bud Lipinski, who was the marketing and project director with FTD. And the minute he heard that Elvis had died, now this is the kind of wire service they were. He got on the phone and got with Joe Esposito at the time and with the Presley family so that he wanted to volunteer to be of any help that he could. Well, of course, they needed help. You know, they didn't know what they were facing, and they said, come on down. So he immediately caught a plane and flew down. Then he got in touch with Paul Casey, who was the FTD marketing guy in our district, and then Lynn Doyle, who was head of the Professional Florists Association here in Memphis. And they all met out here at the mansion, and believe it or not, flowers had already started coming in, helter-skelter. Nobody knew where to put anything. And Bud and Paul and Lynn got everything arranged and put all of the standing sprays and floral arrangements along the driveway. I asked Bud what the atmosphere was like up there and what the mansion, I'd never been in the mansion, and he said, well, the mansion is decorated like Elvis wanted it to. He said, there's a lot of red velvet, Carolyn. And I said, well, that's good. And I said, well, what was the attitude? And he said, sad. He said, I have never seen as many tears in my life. And before they moved all the flowers, I thought this was so sweet that he told me. And his grandmother asked if she could come out on the porch and see how he had the flowers displayed. And so that's what they did. And I thought that was really touching and sweet. Then he made arrangements to move all of the sprays and things that had lined the driveway to the mausoleum for the next morning. So that was the reason I had to be down early. And we all met at the mausoleum steps and decided what we would do as a group. Now, Paul had to leave, so that left Jack Osborne with Teleflora and me and Bud Lipinski and Lynn Doyle. And they made all the arrangements. The professional florist group here in Memphis was a very tight-knit group. They worked together beautifully, but they were stunned. They had never handled anything like this before. There were rules governing large funerals for presidents that the Society of American Florists had outlined, but believe me, no president ever got as many flowers as Elvis did. When we're sitting there waiting for the funeral procession to come in, we got to looking at the flowers laying there in the hot sun. And we thought, what a disaster, because tomorrow, if the press comes out and takes pictures, they're going to say, what a waste. And it wasn't. It was fans that couldn't get here could remember Elvis that way. So anyway, we're sitting there thinking, and Bud said, you know what, we ought to give them away. And Lynn and I, all of us agreed that would be ideal, but how? And Lynn Doyle, being head of the professional florist here in Memphis, said, we've got a phone tree. We'll get on the phone, we'll get on the TV and the radio, and we'll tell them in the morning, any fans that want to come and get a remembrance from Elvis will do it. So Bud very gently told us we've got to clear everything with the cemetery and with the family if they are willing to do this. And Bud he should have been a diplomat with the UN because he handled things so beautifully. And he did talk to Joe Esposito, and he talked to the Presleys. And the way Bud put it was so good. He said, this is their love gift to Elvis, and why not give them a remembrance back of him, and let us give him a flower from his flowers. And they thought, they said, the only thing Vernon Presley said, if it can be handled in a way that it won't be a circus. And that's the way it was. And we figured, Lynn got the phone tree going. The cemetery agreed that they would get with the police department and have people to come, so things would be in an orderly fashion. People walked from the gate, which was about a mile, to the mausoleum the next morning. We figured probably 500 to 1,000 people might come. 5,000 people came. They gave away flowers. They had a group in the back dismantling, and then they moved up front and dismantled. Then they got where they were cutting strips of ribbon to give people, and the greenery. And Lynn Doyle called me that night at home. I'd had a big funeral in Brownsville, so I couldn't come back down. And he told me, he said, Carolyn, we gave away everything but the wire easels and the styrofoam. And when we left there, that mausoleum ground was as clean as a pin. The cemetery came and moved all the easels and things, and it looked just perfect. We did discuss that day also that I said, do you know this is going to turn into a national holiday, whether it be his birthday or his death date or what. But I said, I really believe this will. And Lynn said, and people will send flowers, I bet you. We thought, you know, he'd still be in the mausoleum, and Miss Presley would still be there with Vernon or somebody beside her. Well, we got thinking about that, and to this day, florists in Memphis have standing orders from fan clubs all over the world for his birthday and his death day. And I think you could go by there on any of those dates and see flowers there that florists send. And it's an honor that is kept. I mean, that's a standing order, and it stays on the wall, and it's taken care of every year. It's amazing. That man today, the people that still remember and love him. You know, my mother was one of his biggest fans, and she had tickets to the concert that he was supposed to give. I wonder what she ever did with those. I don't know. But anyway, I said, Mother, why do you love Elvis so? She said, because he was good to his mother, and because he came from a hard-working family, and he's worked his way up, and I just don't think these girls ought to scream so loud because I can't hear him sing. So that was the elder generation's love for him. I really and truly think he showed hope for the working man. You know, Elvis, he was just from a good, I guess, dirt poor family. And you think of the people, I remember in high school, I think I had 4 pleated skirts and 4 sloppy Joe sweaters. You know, we didn't have big clothes closets back then. And everybody, we worked. And you made ends meet. And see, I'm a war baby. I mean, before the war, I was 13 when the Second World War started. And when you think about that, you know, we grew up treasuring what we had, and we worked hard for it. And look at this, if he hadn't made that record for his mother's birthday, you know, but he just hit it big, and he had what it took. And I think he was the hope for working class America. I really and truly, that if I was going to just say that was it, for my explanation for him and the love for him that showed, hey, I could do that too if or I could run this store, or I could do anything. Elvis did it. So, you know, I think everybody needs a little hope every once in a while. And he was just the hope for the younger generation, and the old ones appreciated his goodness to his parents.